Stéphane, we do not hear you. Open your mic.
All right. This is clearly the first time I'm doing this, so let's try this again. Happy Monday. Good afternoon to all of you. I'll start off with Libya, where the UN mission in that country expressed its grave concern regarding reports that one civilian was killed and 3 were injured, and a number of other demonstrators were arrested on September 12th. This followed the reported excessive use of force by Eastern authorities against the peaceful demonstrators in the city of al-Marj. The UN mission calls for a thorough and immediate investigation into these incidents and for the speedy release of all those arbitrarily arrested and detained. The mission reminds all parties in Libya that the rights to peaceful assembly and freedom of expression are fundamental to human rights and fall within Libya's obligations under international human rights law. And on Afghanistan, you will have seen that the Secretary General had a video message for the state, for the meeting of the intra-Afghan negotiations in Doha, Qatar. He said that the start of the peace negotiations between Afghanistan and the Taliban presents a major opportunity to achieve the long-held aspirations of the people for peace. The Secretary General paid tribute to the resilience and courage of all Afghans, stressing that an inclusive peace process in which women, youth, and victims of conflict are meaningfully represented offers the best hope for a sustainable solution. And you will have seen that we issued a statement on Friday afternoon in which the Secretary General said he remains deeply concerned about the situation in Belarus, particularly the continued use of force against peaceful protesters and the detention of people exercising their legitimate democratic rights. He's also concerned about reports of intimidation tactics against civil society, media, and opposition figures. He calls on the authorities in Belarus to refrain from the use of force against those engaging in peaceful assembly and to ensure that allegations of torture and other mistreatment of people in detention are fully investigated and addressed. The Secretary General underlines that the current crisis can only be resolved by the Belarusian people through broad-based, inclusive dialogue, which should start immediately in the interest of stability. Also on Belarus, I wanted to update you on what our UN team there is doing to fight the spread of the COVID-19 virus and mitigate its impact. The team, led by resident coordinator Ioana Kazana, is providing some $7.5 million to the national response, including addressing the socioeconomic impact and supporting the health system. The World Health Organization delivered 250 oxygen concentrators, while the UN Children's Fund supplied 40 remote sensing thermometers to be distributed to educational institutions, as well as 60 air circulators for the city of Minsk. WHO also helped to enhance the national airport's prevention and detection programs. A recent survey led by the UN Population Fund found that nearly 40% of the population feels the financial impact and emotional toll from the pandemic. And the UN, along with the World Bank, are continuing with a campaign, including on billboards, to curb the spread of the pandemic. Back here in his annual briefing on peacekeeping reform to the Security Council, Jean-Pierre Lacroix, the head of the peace operations, said that as the peacekeeping mission have been supporting national responses to COVID-19, they're also continuing to pursue their action for peacekeeping commitment. The pandemic has imposed new challenges, he said, but in areas such as policy and guidance work, it has also created space for progress. Looking forward, Mr. Lacroix said he wanted the UN peacekeeping to continue to be an indispensable multilateral tool for peace and security toolbox. The missions need to continue to respond to immediate challenges, including weak commitment to peace by the various actors in the conflict and the regionalization of conflict. But he added that in the coming years, we're likely to see a world transformed by potentially lethal and disruptive technologies, climate-related disruptions, and other challenges that have missions, To have missions fit for purpose for the coming decade, Mr. Lacroix concluded that they have begun an internal reflection on the types of adaptations that will be required for these operations. Turning to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, you may have seen on Friday afternoon, we expressed the Secretary General's concern at the ongoing violence in the Oromo territory, notably in the borders of Ituri and North Kivu provinces. Recent attacks have once again led to the killings of many civilians. The area continues to experience intra-community violence, but also remain under threat by members of the Allied Democratic Forces. The Secretary General reiterated the support of the UN to the Congolese authorities in bringing justice to the perpetrators of attacks against civilians, national security forces, and peacekeepers in the country. He reaffirmed the commitment of the UN to support the people and government of the DRC in their efforts to bring about peace, stability in the east of the country. And our friends in Paris at UNESCO today released a report which notes there's been a sharp increase in this year in the global number of protests during which police and security forces violated media freedom. In some cases, including during protests linked to Black Lives Matters movement and others, violence resulted in permanent injuries, such as those sustained by journalists blinded by rubber bullets or pepper balls. As you will have seen, on Friday, we issued a statement in which the Secretary General also spoke out on this subject, saying that he is appalled at the continued and increased numbers of attacks against journalists around the world. He said the recent killing of Julio Valdivia Rodriguez, a Mexican journalist, is yet another example of the hazardous and difficult conditions in which many journalists work globally. The Secretary General reiterated that a free press is essential for peace, justice, and sustainable development in human rights, and added that when media workers are targeted, societies as a whole pays a price. And at the opening session of the Human Rights Council in Geneva this morning, the High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, said that the pandemic has collided with many slower and more entrenched political and social economic crises around the world. With poverty and tensions shooting up, sharp decline in many people's hope for a better life, especially added that human rights norms provide the tested guidance that can help states de-escalate grievances, deliver appropriate protection, establish a sound foundation for development and security, and ensure freedom and rights. In this context, she said there are important opportunities for the UN to assist states to devise human rights-based actions that can de-escalate tensions, support sustainable development, and preserve people's well-being, even at this challenging time. And her remarks are obviously available to you. And just a quick note from Sudan, where humanitarian colleagues say that nearly 720,000 people have been affected by continued floods in the country, with more than 100 deaths reported. Tens of thousands of homes have been damaged or destroyed, and thousands of livestock killed. The UN, together with the government and our partners, are helping those in need. We have reached some 200,000 people with health, food, and other assistance. The humanitarian response plan for Sudan needs $1.6 billion, but it's less than half funded, and obviously resources are urgently needed. And a new eco-label launched today by the Sustainable Rice Platform, which is led by the UN Environment Program, will help shoppers reduce their environmental impact by identifying rice that has been sustainably produced. Over 3.5 billion people rely on rice as a daily staple, but rice farming consumes up to 1/3 of the world's developed freshwater resources and generates up to 20% of global emissions of methane, potent greenhouse gases. UNEP has said employing best practices in rice farming can reduce water by some 20% and methane emissions from flooded rice fields by up to 50%. With new labels, consumers will be able to trace rice back to its origin country, and retailers can make a significant contribution to sustainability commitments and climate change targets. More information from UNEP. And finally, I want to flag to you that this Saturday, we, along with our partners from Project Everyone and 72 Films Production, are releasing the film, quote, Nations United, Urgent Solutions for Urgent Times. That will be at 9 a.m. The film sets out what must be done to tackle the world's biggest issues, from COVID-19 to poverty, inequality, gender discrimination, climate change, justice, and human rights. The film was directed by our friend Richard Curtis, who is also a sustainable SDG global advocate, and features UN messengers of peace and goodwill, including Malala Yousafzai, Don Cheadle, Michelle Yeoh, among others. And I hear it also features Beyonce. The broadcast will be shown to mark the 75th anniversary of these United Nations, as well as the 5th anniversary of the Sustainable Development Goals. You can watch the film's premiere on the UN's YouTube channel and on our webcast platform on UN Web TV. All right, I will stop there. Let's see if anybody has any questions for me. Benjamin. Avni, Benny.
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Go ahead. I'm seeing. I hope you're not. I hope you're not driving.
My wife is driving. She's laughing. We're in a parking lot anyway. Steph, two questions about statements I may have missed. One, speaking of the right to protest, Navid Afkari was executed in Iran, and a lot of world leaders have commented on it. Haven't seen the Secretary General. He was executed after participating in a protest, and after the confession was extracted by torture. Anything?
Look, the Secretary General has been very clear against his feelings against the use of the death penalty. He firmly condemns the use of the death penalty in this case, the one you mentioned in Iran, and in every other case that it's been used.
So it's about the death penalty, not about this particular case?
I think I may have spoken. Maybe you need to pump up the volume on your speakers. I say he condemns the use of the death penalty in this particular case and every other case that it's been used.
Okay, the second question is another thing that I may have missed, and that is and I asked you about that before, but now another country has joined in. What is the Secretary General's view on the signing tomorrow of agreement between Israel and two Arab countries? The first such signing in a quarter century. Is that
Look,
good thing, bad thing?
The Secretary General hopes that the signing ceremony tomorrow will help create more opportunities for regional cooperation. And he also hopes that Israeli and Palestinian leaders will re-engage in meaningful negotiations that will end the occupation, realize a two-state solution in line with relevant UN resolutions, international law, and existing bilateral agreements.
That's it.
That's it? Okay. James Bays.
You didn't go on to read. I cancelled because you already answered on Belarus.
Oh, excellent. All right. Errol. Abdovich. Okay. We'll come back to you. Edie.
All right. You come back.
Okay. All right. Go ahead. Go ahead, Errol. You're up. Go ahead.
Okay. Farhan sent me something as in the form of a response to my question, how the Secretary General views this agreement between in Washington between Trump administration and Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić and the Kosovo Prime Minister Hoti a week ago. Now, since as a part of that agreement was the recognition of Israel of Kosovo, while Serbia and Kosovo would move their embassies from Tel Aviv. Obviously, Kosovo will open in Jerusalem. How the Secretary General view that context, moving embassies in that context of peace?
Look, the decision to move an embassy is a decision taken by the different entities. As for the status of Jerusalem, the Secretary General believes it is an issue that should be decided by the parties. As for more countries recognizing each other and establishing relations, that's obviously a positive step.
Do you think, as a follow-up, do you think that this is a right move in the right direction in the peace process in the Middle East, or some kind of peril of moving the...
Listen, I will leave the in-depth analysis to all of you.
Okay.
Ms. Lederer.
Thank you very much, Steph. I hope you can hear me. I'm actually at the UN today, and I can't do video.
That's okay. I recognize your voice, so I know it's you.
Thank you. I wonder whether the Secretary General has any comment on a court in Rwanda today charging Paul Rusesabagina, whose story inspired the film Hotel Rwanda, with terrorism, complicity in murder, and forming an armed rebel group. As you know, he was basically kidnapped and taken to Rwanda. He's denied all the charges.
Look, I will send you something on that. I had some language which, strangely enough, I can't find because I'm having computer issues. But I will send all of you something very shortly on that.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see, who else do we have? All right, I think that's it. Just as a reminder.
I put my name, Stéphane.
Yeah, I put my name.
Okay.
Me too.
Okay. Relax.
Resolution 478, which was adopted on 20 August 1980, clearly instructs every country in the world not to move its embassy to Jerusalem. And this was re-emphasized in Resolution 2334, adopted on 23rd December 2016. So look, I think
what is clear,
this way,
what is clear for us and for the Secretary General is that the status of Jerusalem is one that should be negotiated between the parties.
Agreed.
And I would refer you to the statement that we issued when the United States announced its move, and the sentiments expressed in that statement stand today for other countries that may make the same decision.
With my respect, I mean, the status of Jerusalem is one thing, and moving the embassy is something else. It's a direct violation of a clearly defined Security Council resolution. But my question is about also the welcoming of the agreement between Bahrain and Israel. Mladinov, in his statement when the United Arab Emirates decided to recognize Israel, he rushed to say to welcome that, and he said would stop the annexation. He used the word stop, and it was proven that it was wrong. Again, why you could welcome something that is a broke away from the norms of the UN Security Council resolution and Arab League resolutions as well.
Abdelhamid, I will reread what I said, right? And you can then analyze and take out the words of what not take out. You can analyze and critique what I said. But what I said is that the Secretary General hopes that the signing ceremony tomorrow will create more opportunities for regional cooperation. And he also hopes that Israelis and Palestinian leaders will re-engage in a meaningful negotiation that will end the occupation, realize a two-state solution in line with relevant UN resolutions, international law, and the agreements that have already been agreed to, by bilateral agreements that have been agreed to. Okay, Sato-san.
Okay, thank you. Hello, Stéphane. So two questions to you. One is easy, yes or no. On Thursday, we have International Day for Peace, which the Secretary General always ring a peace bell. Does Secretary General have any message to convey on that day?
Well, you know, it will be a, excuse for stating the obvious, a message of peace. One of renewal of a commitment to ceasefires, he had put out a call for a global ceasefire. He wants to see these things implemented, and I think we've seen in a number of places some movement in a positive steps, or at least no movement in a negative way in various conflicts.
Okay, second question is about climate change. What we are seeing in the west part of the U.S. is more devastating wildfire still going on. And also, we are seeing the more frequent hurricane from the south coast of the U.S. What is Secretary General's view on this kind of extraordinary climate?
Look, I think if you see everything the Secretary General has said, including in the last briefing with WMO, is that all over the world we're seeing an increase in severe weather, in unpredictable weather, in more violent weather, whether it's in the United States, whether it's in the floods that we're seeing in Sudan and the floods we saw in Yemen, or droughts in other places. And we firmly believe that this extreme weather is linked to climate change, is linked to human activity dealing with climate change. Now, on specifically what's going on in the U.S. and the fires, the Secretary General will be writing to the President of the United States to express his condolences on the loss of life that we've seen during these horrific fires in California and Oregon, Washington, and other states, and say that express his thoughts are with the people and government of the United States as this crisis continues. Okay, Pam, I think you had a question.
Thanks, Steph. First question is, the Secretary General is speaking open Zongo with the President of the General Assembly, but I thought I saw somewhere that he's also having his own separate speech. Is this on some topic? On the General
He's
Assembly?
speaking. There are two events. One is the UN 75 event, which takes place on Monday, which the Secretary General will speak. And the other one is the traditional General Assembly speech that he will deliver on Tuesday.
Okay, and on the 21st, he speaks live.
Yes, there are those two events are live.
Okay, and on his speech, any previews about whether he'll speak about COVID, the climate change, or whatever? And can you share that letter that he's writing to the President of the United States?
No, I can't share the letter at this point. On the other hand, he will speak about the challenges to multilateralism. He will speak of the main challenges that we're facing today, including COVID, including inequalities. But we will be able to preview the speech a little closer to the date for you.
Okay, final one is just any indication if President Trump will be virtual or in person, and if he does come in person, will the SG have a bilateral? Thanks.
Of course, the Secretary General will have a bilateral with him if the President of the United States comes. I have absolutely zero information on whether or not he will be here physically or virtually. I think those questions are best answered by the permanent mission to U.S. or by the State Department.
Thanks so much.
Okay, Stefano Vacara.
I also had a question, Steph.
Okay. Sorry. Go ahead, Betul.
Thank you, Steph. A question on Yemen. Human Rights Watch released a report on aid obstruction in Yemen today and called for the UN to launch an independent investigation. I was wondering how the work of the UN been impacted and who is obstructing, and if the SG is considering to launch an investigation. Thank you.
I haven't seen that report, but what I can tell you is that we've publicly raised the issue of aid blockage in Yemen with various authorities on the ground. As you recall, at some point, WFP also pulled back on some of its aid delivery because of the blockage, because of the administrative procedures. So this is something that we're keenly aware of and that we've raised both publicly and privately with the relevant authorities. Signor Vacara.
Grazie mille. Thank you, Stéphane. An organization based in Berlin today issued a press release. The organization is called Democracy Without Borders. And he's asking, recommends for the UN to elect a global parliament, a new parliament body of the United Nations will strengthen democracy and global collaboration. They say that also this can be done by the General Assembly without changing the charter, and they say will also help about to the issue of climate change and COVID-19, because they say that the citizens of the world have...
Stefano, hold on. You got cut off. If you could just repeat the question, but in a very shortened manner.
Okay, so very short manner is that there is a... Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
There is an organization that's called Democracy Without Borders. It's based in Berlin and recommends an elected global parliament at the UN. And that this General Assembly should organize this without even amending the charter. A parliament that is elected directly from the citizens of the world. So what the UN Secretary General thinks about this idea?
I haven't seen this particular report. What I can tell you is that that sounds to me first like an issue for member states. But let me take a look at it because I haven't seen it.
And then, if you allow me, if you have any news about the investigation,
no news on that. Errol, you had one more question. Errol, go ahead.
You hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, Steph, do we know how many people are not going to be virtual, but they're going to come actually to GA meeting so far? Do we have any confirmation?
No, so as far as I know right now, no heads of states or government have confirmed a physical presence.
Okay, in that connection, is the Secretary General, I don't like to put too much on your Monday plate, but I really
That's
have
okay. It's better on the Monday plate than a Friday plate.
All right. So I think it's a question for Secretary General, how he sees the future of this organization after this virtual move in the microcosmos of virtual diplomacy. How he see the future of the UN?
Look, I mean, I think all of us very much hope that a virtual General Assembly is not the future of the UN. It is something we have to deal with this year for the particular circumstances that we're currently facing. We very much hope that next year will be different and we will be able to meet again in person. You know, on one hand, it does create an opportunity for every head of state or head of government to speak to the General Assembly without having to travel.
Visa travel?
But sorry?
Visa travel? What travel?
Without having to travel.
Oh, okay, all right, thank you.
Without having to travel. But on the other hand, what we'll be missing is the human aspect of diplomacy. You know, we organize every year hundreds and hundreds of bilateral meetings between heads of states, right? Who, for various political or other reasons, won't travel to each other's countries or can't do it. And this provides a huge amount of positive informal diplomacy. Secretary General will not be having the bilateral meetings that he usually has. I mean, you know that list. I mean, on the positive end, you won't have to deal with the hundreds of readouts that we issue every year and that are so full of vivid and information. But it's something that's missing, and it's something that's missing from all our lives. But we very much hope that this is not the future of the UN. But of course, we're learning. This will have an impact, and we're learning to work in new ways as well. Okay, Karina, you have a question. Karina?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
TS Relief called on the UN to take immediate action to address the oil tanker in Yemen. Has there been any update on that situation?
No, sadly, no. We're continuing the discussions with the Ansar Allah authorities, the de facto authorities. It is vital that we move on this as quickly as possible, because every day that there isn't positive news is every day. It adds to the ecological and human risk of the tanker disintegrating or exploding or whatever.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Unless Abdelhamid, please.
Yes, yesterday, I think this morning, Turkey decided to withdraw its exploration ship from East Mediterranean, cooling off the tension. Do you have any comment on that?
No, I do not at this. I do not at this point.
Thank you.
Okay, unless somebody waves their hand. Toby, you're not wearing your mask properly. There we go. Okay. We'll be the mask police today. Though you don't need to wear a mask when you're talking to me over the video. All right, listen, enough. We'll see you tomorrow. And a reminder, SG press conference on Wednesday. And we hope to bring you the Deputy Secretary General on Thursday. Ciao.